everyone. Welcome to today's webinar for empowering educators and creating a culture of care. We're super excited to have you here. My name's Danielle Horning. I'm one of the customer success managers at Thrively, and I'll be your main host. Thank you for joining us. So we'll go ahead and get started. So as I said, I'll be your host for today's session along with my colleague, Dr. Marian Smith Jr., and our guest, Carolyn Conley, who is one of the most amazing counselors we've had the pleasure of working with.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
So before we begin, I want to take a moment just to share a little bit of information about Thrively, cover a few household items. So this is high-level information. So just keep in mind that at the end, if you are interested in additional information, resources, don't stress, we have all of that ready for you. We'll be giving you contact information at the very end. So just to start us off, as many of you have heard, Thrively was founded on a core philosophy that every child has a genius and deserves to thrive. So our main saying is, what's wrong with you, not what's wrong with you. So for the most part, we are a student-based platform, but today we're really diving into how we can support not only students, but educators like yourself. So our session today will be approximately 30 minutes. We're going to go into how we support educators. We'll dive into Carolyn's experience as a counselor. And then on top of that, go into Thrively resources and support that we can offer you. So to introduce our facilitators real quick, again, my name is Danielle Horning. So a little bit of background about me. I've spent about 6 years in education. I was a preschool teacher, a reading intervention teacher, and then I spent 4 years in the 6th grade classroom where I actually got to use Thrively with all my students. And sorry, I didn't even go to the next slide. Sorry about
That's okay.
that.
My name is Carolyn Conley, and I've been in education for 11 years. I've worked mainly with elementary age students, and then I've also worked in a high school for 3 years. So I'm currently servicing 346 students, TK through 6th grade, and I was born and raised right here in beautiful California.
All right, and thank you for that, Carolyn and Danielle. And so, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Marian Smith Jr. I'm the Chief Learning Officer here at Thrively, and I like to say that I've seen education from a variety of perspectives. This is year number 24 for me, from classroom teacher, school principal, chief academic officer, superintendent of schools, and prior to Thrively, assistant state superintendent. And so always excited to be in a place where we're talking with those who are doing the world's most important work, which are our educators that are in school. So thank you for joining us here today.
Perfect. Thank you both. And then Dr. Smith, if you want to take us away.
No, absolutely. And so, as you heard, Danielle, we're going to focus today on 4 parts. And so, we're going to walk you through this journey. It's going to be quick and fast. And at the end, as Danielle pointed out, we'll have opportunities to have contact information. So, if you wanted to delve a little bit deeper into some of the content, feel free to contact us there. But today, we're really going to use our time to walk you on a journey of first understanding the challenge. And so being able to just give you some information to really discuss why supporting and empowering educators is crucial and critically important. As Danielle pointed out, our focus is on students, right? We look at our students, we work with students each and every day. Our resources are targeted for students, but at the end of the day, the adults are a critical part of the learning and teaching equation that oftentimes gets overlooked in this space. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then we are so excited to have just a Thrively educator on our call today, just sharing her experiences of being a school counselor, holding the psychological wellness of adults and students. And so we'll learn a little bit about what has been powerful, what has been impactful, the challenges, the successes from Carolyn. So thank you for joining us. And then we'll recenter this back on the adults and talk about a few of our key professional learning opportunities and resources that we've developed just listening to educators and following the research around what needs to be in place. And then we'll spend the remainder of our time with any questions that you may have and outlining possible next steps.
Thank you. So just starting off of, understanding the challenge, what we've seen is that with educators, we see 40% of teachers leaving the profession within their first 5 years, right? And we really want to work on this. We want to stop that. So these are our key stakeholders, those in the classroom supporting our students. And unfortunately, they're often overlooked, right? And as Dr. Smith mentioned, we are very dedicated to nurturing the whole child, but we want to take a step back and really focus on educators. So at Thrively, we're aiming to refocus not just our students, but not just on our students, but on the adults who play this vital role in the bigger grand scheme of things. So we want to maximize the platform to provide the support they need so we can keep our teachers. And on the slide, you can see just a few teachers we have here doing a few PDs with us and just the power we have behind that. So again, I want to just bring to attention our amazing counselor, Carolyn. She's here to speak on behalf of her experience in the classroom and utilizing Thrively. So I want to bring in Carolyn and just her experience with Thrively and her experience in the classroom utilizing this.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me here. I was first introduced to Thrively, and what really sold me on the platform was the well-being check-ins. And when we get to that, I'll let you know. And my whole desire was to just start with a wellness check-in once a week because as you could see on the pictures, I was going into classrooms doing whole classroom lessons, and I would ask a question like, "Hey, what is something that you tell yourself often?" And I had, like, if you can see on some of these post-its, kids that were saying such negative things to themselves, like, "I'm fat. I'm never good enough. Um, I am always the bad kid each day, each year. I need to be skinny." There were just so many like negative statements that students would say about themselves. And I never asked them to put their names on these little post-its because I wanted the honest answer. And then when I was introduced to Thrively and learned about this well-being check-in, I just thought, oh my gosh, this is just a tool I can use that would alert me if a student checks in and they check in at a low rate. So there's like a balance of how it is formulated. And then if a student becomes below average, then I'm alerted immediately by an email and I see that there's a student that's like not doing well that day. And so I've teamed up with the teacher since I am for student support and support staff for the teachers. I've teamed up with the teachers and we have 4 classrooms. We're starting small, we're taking a bite, and we're, really trying to utilize it to its maximum ability. But, we're taking baby steps, especially with the help of Danielle. So we started with 4 classrooms at my school. It's a TK through 6th. So we're using 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and a combo 5, 6. And they're checking in 1 day each week. And that way, when I get the alert that a student and the teachers also get the same alert, if a student, checks in as not doing so great that day, we tag team. So it leaves time for me to either go take over the classroom while the teacher is checking in with those students, building that connection with the student so that, you know, they can figure out what's going on and they can support that child, or they can come to me and I can check in with the student and then I can help support that child for the day. And with those check-ins, we have had such eye-opening experiences. I got each time a classroom checks in, they send you a report, and especially if somebody checks in low. So I got an alert from Thrively, and it was a student that just said that he hadn't been feeling great that day. He rated himself a 1 out of 5. And so I got an alert, and I called him in and I said, "Hey, what's going on with you today?" And he's like, "I'm fine, Miss Conley." And I was like, I don't know if you're fine. You checked in kind of low, buddy." And he just started crying. He's like, "You noticed?" And I said, "Absolutely, buddy. You checked in low, and I want to know what's going on." And it come to find out, he like shared with me he hadn't been eating at home, that he had been practicing cutting, to try to relieve some of his pain. And I would have never known this about this student without that check-in. Um, because he's a kid that comes to school, he's well groomed, he smiles all the time, but he was checking in privately, and he just let himself be vulnerable in this space. And so it was a great way to lead into talking to him and opening that bridge of communication. And now I'm seeing him on a regular basis. We have him on a backpack home program, so he has food each day. And he's like just really setting the bar pretty high for all the other students and checking in and utilizing the platform. Um, that's the extreme side of it. But the great side of it is that the teachers also love the platform. They do what's called a strength assessment for all students in the class. The kids absolutely love it because they're looking at pictures and talking to each other about the things they're interested in, and they're answering questions about like all the things that they are interested in doing maybe when they grow up. And hence the word "what's strong with you," because these assessments really come back with, you would be doing great as an astronaut or an astrologist or a coach. And it really highlights the student's strengths. And especially in my school, it's a low socioeconomic school, and a lot of parents, they're only Spanish speaking. And when they come to school and they're hearing that they're cognitive thinkers and, they have all these amazing strengths, the terminology that we can use and group them in and ask, like, all of the critical thinkers, please stand up and get in line. All of the, um, creative, artistic students now get in line. And instead of just dismissing table one, table two, table three, we are empowering them with this amazing terminology and self esteem boosters all day long. The teachers, we now have 2 classrooms out of the 4 that have created bulletin boards, and it shows the students' names, and it has all their strengths around their names. And the students can see, like, wow, so and so and myself, we have the same strengths. I never knew that. And I never thought about sitting next to that person or playing with them at recess. And so it's really a great way to just connect students with one another and build community. And I just like, I really love it. The kids in the pictures that you can see, pictures say 1,000 words. So this picture down here where the students are patting their head and rubbing their tummy, it's a part of the strengths assessment. And it's just seeing if they're coordinated, and they absolutely love it. And the other student, he's pointing to pictures of interest. And it's very kid friendly, easy to use. Some of the teachers at the end of the assessments, you get a report, and it's in the report, it tells you the student's strengths and the things they're interested in. And so teachers, they can print that report, and then they can send it home in report cards. And for parents to see, like, oh my gosh, my child is artistic, they're analytical, they're creative, they have, some parents are just like, wow, that's my kid. And they have never been told that before. So I love the motto of "what's strong with you." For other things that we've used, are the check-ins, the assessments, um, as a support staff, and how I try to empower educators is by just giving as much support as I possibly can to them. Each day, I do morning mindfulness, and that's with our most difficult students. I find them like amazing, but I would say that they're the most talkative, the highest energy level. So they're all invited to my class each morning. I have about 12 students that come in out of 346. Every classroom has committed to starting the day with a community circle. And sometimes these students are unable to wait their turn or sit still in the circle. So we have our own circle. And so we start with 10 minutes of meditation, and then we have our morning circle with our topic. And then every student is given the opportunity to speak, get their bucket filled, acclimate themselves to school, and then transition back to the classroom. We utilize PBIS at my school. I have a junior coach program that we push students out. We're trying to teach them the Thrively terminology so that they can empower students at recess and teach them their strengths. So we have the fifth and sixth graders that push out at our lower ed recesses. Um, we also have alternative recess we use for those students that may not be socially connected to other students out on the blacktop. They can come into what we call the space and play board games. We use restorative practices here, which really truly ties into the Thrively model of learning how to communicate, teaching students their strengths. We say when in doubt, rock it out. We use the Rochambeau method. um, I also try to do my small groups, one-on-ones, and then whole classroom, where we use Thrively as well as a couple other platforms, which then equals that little last picture. And it's hopefully we exit students from counseling and needing that extra intervention support. That's always the goal. And I just feel like as student support, utilizing platforms such as Thrively, it's a great opportunity to not only help students, but teachers. And so, our goal by the end of the year is to also have all of our teachers take the strengths assessment. And then by, again, the end of the year, we're taking small steps, but they're great leaps, when we start utilizing these tools. But by the end of the year, we'll have every teacher take that strengths assessment, and then having them check in monthly so that us as extra support on campus, we'll be able to see where our teachers are, and then during our professional developments, being able to maybe utilize that as what we need to teach in our professional developments during principal PDs. So I know I said a lot, and I'm really sorry, but I can't say enough about how great this platform is and how much it's helped our school.
No, we love to hear your experience. I mean, to have you, I mean, you are doing above and beyond with Thrively and going above and beyond with all your mindfulness and practices that you guys are instilling in your school. So we really thank you for your dedication. And just, you tied into what we do for staff too. And I know you and I have talked about just how you're a counselor for students, but a lot of times you end up supporting teachers as well. And you kind of discussed going into, helping teachers manage the classroom with engagement as well, and supporting them with, doing the check-ins and highlighting teachers, for their own strengths, because we want our teachers to feel valued. Having the well-being check-in, having the hope check-in be a part of different staff meetings, and really promoting a positive and resilient workplace, I think is so important during this time, especially when we're seeing, this unfortunate growth in I mean, basically teacher decline right now. I think it's so important. And I know I've watched you with a lot of your teachers and the rapport you have, and, what you're already doing with them is wonderful. But yeah, instilling not just for students here with Thrively, but also now with our adults. We really want to support everyone on campus and create a cultured campus that supports everyone. And I
For
know,
sure.
Doc-
Not to interrupt you, but I just really feel like I, I'm in education. Teachers are like one of the most difficult audiences there are. And it's because, you know, they're giving their time every single day. And so I've learned that like when I speak to them or if I'm presenting them with something, I don't want to just fill their plate with something else, you know, to do. It's got to be impactful and meaningful and have a big bang for its punch, right? And so, like, even asking the teachers to do this, I am totally fine doing that. I am one big believer of not wasting people's time. Not only would this really help them and benefit them, it's actually super fun and easy. And so, I've personally done it. So I know personally like how easy it is. And then as an educator, I get to share my strengths with my students, and then we can connect on that level as well. They'll think, oh my gosh, Miss Conley, you are a worldly person just like me. It's like, yeah, isn't that cool? And then, you know, we can go and compare each other's strengths. So it truly is, you know, if you're planning on doing this with your staff, it isn't again like something you're just piling on the plate to be a time waster. It's truly something that you'll be able to create again community, which is truly lacking. I mean, in schools, and then it's also empowering to teachers. You know that they do have that little thing that they can get personal with their students for. It's just really great. It's sorry to interrupt you, but
oh,
I guess
you're awesome. Um, I'm gonna bring this over to Dr. Smith if you'd like to add on.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just excited just listening to the conversation, right? And so, Carolyn, we appreciate you just sharing just one perspective around, as we said at the onset, here is how Thrively really supports students. But then we're taking that bridge to how can we utilize these resources and what are we learning from practitioners and educators that are in schools each and every day of how they're utilizing these resources to really address the adults as well. And so, to end up our time, remember, we talked a little bit about how are we helping and supporting educators to really reprioritize staff. And so one thing that we pride ourselves on here at Thrively is that we are research-based. And we're practitioner tested. And so we hear Carolyn talking about, well, no, it's not just something they're talking about. It's something that actually works in the classroom, not only with students, but with adults. And so as we think about the well-being check-in, we think about the Hope Index of how you're implementing that with students. You've heard Danielle and Carolyn talk about here's what it could look like for the adults in the school. And so having that 60 to 90-second daily or weekly check-in just for the adults, right? When you're sitting down having a meeting, a PLC session, a CFG, whatever that is, before you get to the matter at hand. It's all about checking on everyone's psychological wellness, right? The power of having that for the adults in your school. Having the Hope Index, one of our major pushes for January 2025 is having every school, every student, every adult take the 2-minute Hope survey. And so that measures agency and pathways and being able to see how hopeful is our school community, not only students, but staff, and having that conversation on a regular cadence amongst each other as adults of how to support each other with that willpower and that way power, right? The agency and the pathways. But two things that I wanted to call out specifically that we've learned from educators like Carolyn from across the country is there's been a request to say we need or we would like to have more professional learning opportunities and resources and supports targeting the adults. And so what you see on your screen are two different opportunities. And I'll put something in the chat as we close out our time that we've developed and curated two specific professional learning programs that provide targeted resources and supports. And so the first one we call our culture of care. And so that's for an entire school or a school district where it's just 90 minutes. And so you already have professional development sessions throughout the year. So 90 minutes And we really walk you through an experiential journey where we provide all of the educators with like hands-on experiences and resources where we're walking you through the strengths assessment, the well-being index, the hope index as it relates to adults, right? Like the power of creating professional development to understand who are the adults in your building? Do you understand their particular strengths? And how are you creating conversations and resources and supports to really tap into that? So 90 minutes just to do that. I'm a former school principal. I think it took me 2 or 3 years to know everyone on my staff and their individual strengths and needs, right? And I probably left after 5 years still not knowing all of their individual needs and strengths. Imagine 90 minutes of getting all of this information and starting from that particular space. The second resource that we have is we've been able to partner with Kathleen Beachboard. And so she's the researcher and author of The School of Hope. And we've created a comprehensive program with 4 different professional learning opportunities. One is the culture of hope. The second is the school of hope. The third is our culture of how do you operationalize your MTSS programming. And the last is the hopeful culture audit. As Danielle said at the very beginning, a lot of information here, just the tip of the iceberg. But this particular professional learning series just allows for us to really unpack the science and the psychology of hope and provide targeted resources, lessons. Some of you may already be familiar with like our Pure Edge resources. We have our daily dose of hope. So we take a deeper dive into the systems, the processes, the structures, and working with the adults in the system. Because one thing that we've learned at Thrively is we will not get the results around academics if we don't have certain conditions in place. And those 4 conditions that we've learned about following the research over the last 20 plus years is number 1, strengths, number 2, well-being, number 3, hope, and number 4, connections. And so these particular professional learning series and programs have been created out of just listening to educators wanting to create those enabling conditions to work with the other adult in their system. And so as Danielle begins to wrap up, you'll see in the chat in a few just information and links to learn a little bit more about the culture of care, about the culture of hope. And then there will also be a link if you wanted to explore the hopeful culture audit. And so it's something that you can just take a look at the policies, the practices, the procedures in your schooling environment um, that dealing with to try to address those, to create those strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful classrooms for the adults as well in your system. Danielle?
Thank you for that. So just as we wrap this up, just a few key takeaways, right? Understanding the challenge, just where we are in education, right? With 40% of teachers leaving, we need to know where we stand right now. And then going into Carolyn's amazing experience as a counselor and just what real educators are doing today in the classrooms and on campus. And then, at our end, recentering with the adults and our culture of care, our culture of hope. We want to provide resources to support all educators.
Carolyn,
And
I
again,
think it would be great if you could talk a little bit about just the power. I talked a little bit about the culture of hope, the culture of care, just being able to build on that in your particular context. Like, what do you see being some of the possible benefits of being able to work with adults in this targeted way, providing that professional learning and building upon what you're already doing with the students?
Well, I think, and I'll just be very honest. I feel like this is a great tool for teachers. It empowers them in so many different ways, not only to connect with students emotionally, but then on the flip side, there are a lot of videos that you guys provide with different categories. So, I had some students in a classroom that had a sub the other day, and they were really rude to the sub. So I assigned them these character development videos to watch. And then they had to perform like this little 3 question, I think it was 3 or 5 question exit tickets. And so I used the playlist. They're all hyperlinked lessons that you can assign to students. And I think that really empowers a teacher when they're not feeling supported in school. It's true. It's, that is a big problem in education today, is teachers aren't feeling supported. And so this empowers teachers to, assign different assignments to, teach character building, teach SEL each week. There's like 9 or 10 different um, titles that you can utilize. That definitely takes a lot of weight off of teachers' plates. It also connects teachers, as like, we have TK through sixth, and we have teachers that in sixth grade that say they never really get to connect with kindergarten. So that builds community between them. They can both see that their character strengths are the same. And it's just a communication opener, and it starts the community building. And it's a great tool to use to connect people.
No, absolutely. And I see that we have one question here before I turn it back over to you, Danielle. And so, Aaron, yes. And the question is, I was wondering if you might have a basic handout for administrators on the different PD options. And so I did include links to both the culture of care and the culture of hope in the chat. But for those that may be driving and may not have access to that, when you receive a follow-up to this webinar, all of that information will be provided to you. So we do have those one-pagers that give you a more detailed summary of what's offered, like what's included, the outcomes of each of these professional learning opportunities. And then if you wanted to know more, Danielle has some contact information for
Yes. And I think, yeah, the biggest thing, going back to what Carolyn said, is giving everyone a voice, not just the students, but giving teachers a voice is so, so important. Um, we went a little over, but just thank you, all of you, for joining us today, for empowering educators and creating a culture of care. We really hope that you enjoyed the session, that it challenged your thinking and your impact on professional practices. So really, thank you so much for your time and just your dedication to learning. And I mean, that's why we're all here. So let's continue to humanize learning together.
you. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.